This isn't just a story about a school visit, it's about how one brave little girl used her voice to ask a question that silenced the most powerful man in the country. When President Trump walked into a Kansas classroom, he expected handshakes and smiles. But he left with something far more valuable truth from the heart of an 8-year-old girl.
A gentle hum of anticipation filled the modest Kansas elementary school that morning. Principal Reyes stood before a crowd of students and staff in the school auditorium, wearing a mysterious smile that sparked whispers among the children. As he reached the microphone, a hush fell. "I've got news," he said, voice calm but steady, "something unlike anything we've ever seen here before." Everyone leaned in. "Today, we'll be visited by none other than the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump." Gasps swept through the auditorium. A few teachers froze mid-motion, pens dangling from stunned fingers. Students looked around wide-eyed, unsure if they'd misheard. But Principal Reyes simply nodded, confirming their disbelief. "Yes, he's on his way. And he wants to meet you the students." Third-grade teacher Mrs. Calloway turned to check on her class. Most of the children were buzzing with excitement, some already whispering guesses about what would happen. But in the second row, one student sat still, Lyla Hart, her hands folded neatly in her lap, eyes distant. "Is it really true?" A boy beside her whispered. Lyla gave a small nod but didn't respond. Roughly an hour later, the crunch of tires on gravel signaled the arrival of several black SUVs. Secret Service agents stepped out, surveying and then, President Trump entered, his signature red tie in place, walking with assurance and offering a warm smile that cut through the tension. There were no reporters, no prepared speeches. This wasn't for the cameras, it was personal. What nobody knew was how this visit would become unforgettable. Not because of the president's words, but because of a quiet girl who dared to raise her hand. Lyla Hart had always been more of a listener than a talker, while her classmates shouted answers and giggled freely. She was the kind of child who observed and thought deeply. Mrs. Calloway had often praised her written work insightful, mature beyond her years, but Lyla hardly ever spoke out in class. Few knew much about her life beyond school. Her mother had died 3 years earlier, and her father, once a farmer, was left with a debilitating back injury. They now lived in a small trailer on the edge of town, their life simple and often difficult. Still, Lyla never missed a single day of school. "She's stronger than most grown-ups," Mrs. Calloway once told Principal Reyes. Now, as President Trump stood before the children, asking about their dreams, Lyla watched intently. "So," he asked, scanning the eager faces, "what do you all want to be when you grow up?" Hands flew into the air. Answers rang out: doctor, astronaut, singer, basketball player. Trump smiled at each response. Then, his tone shifted. "Does anyone have a question for me?" The room quieted. No hands were raised. Then, slowly, Lyla lifted hers. Trump spotted her immediately. "You there, what's your name, sweetheart?" She answered softly as she stood. Her voice, though quiet, commanded attention. The room fell into a deeper silence. Mrs. Calloway leaned forward, sensing something important was coming. And then, Lyla asked a question that would echo far beyond that auditorium. "Mr. President, why don't people care about kids like me?" It was as if time had stopped. Even the air felt still. Trump's expression shifted. The smile faded not from offense, but from understanding. Lyla continued. "My dad used to work a big farm. But then he got hurt, and now we live in a trailer. Some nights we don't have heat. I do homework by candlelight. We can't afford birthday gifts. I give my dad hugs instead. I don't complain, but sometimes, I wonder, do people like you even know we're out here?" No one spoke. No one even breathed. Trump stepped forward. "What do you mean by kids like you?" Lyla's voice held no anger, just a need to be understood. "I don't mean to be disrespectful," she said, "but if you're the president, shouldn't you know about kids like me?" The raw honesty in her words struck everyone. Even Principal Reyes had to remove his glasses, wiping tears from his eyes. Trump didn't deflect. He didn't offer political points. Instead, he crouched down to Lyla's level and met her gaze. "Lyla," he said slowly, "you just said something more powerful than anything I've heard in a long time. I came here to talk, but maybe I came to listen." He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a gold coin, the presidential challenge coin. I usually give this to soldiers and heroes. He told her, but you've earned this, too. Leia stared at the coin in her palm, stunned. Trump stood and turned to the room. This young girl reminded us why we're here. Why I'm here. The room erupted in applause, not for a president, but for a child who had spoken the truth. Mrs. Calloway approached Leia after the event, knelt beside her, and whispered, "That was the bravest thing I've ever seen." "I just told the truth," Leia said softly. "Exactly," her teacher replied, voice trembling, "and the truth is brave." Later, as Leia sat eating her lunch, the coin safely tucked in her backpack, classmates began to see her differently, not with pity, but admiration. Even Mason, the class clown, shyly offered her his juice box. "You're, like, brave and stuff." Before she could finish eating, the intercom crackled. "Leia Hart, please come to the office." She walked nervously down the hall, only to find President Trump waiting. "We're not finished yet," he said. "I want to meet your dad." Minutes later, the motorcade turned off the main road toward the trailer behind the wheat field. Trump stepped out and stared at the worn home. "This is where you live?" "Yes," Leia nodded. "It's not much, but it's ours." Her father, Hank Hart, hobbled out with a crutch, surprised. "You're the president," he managed. "And you're the man who raised one of the bravest kids I've ever met," Trump said, shaking his hand. Inside the trailer, over weak coffee, the conversation turned real. No speeches, no policies, just stories, shared as people. Hank opened up about losing his land and injuring his back. Trump listened. "And through all of that, you raised this girl who stood up and spoke truth," he said. "She did?" Hank asked, eyes brimming with tears. "She asked if I even knew she existed," Trump said. Later, he stepped outside, made a call, and requested reports on rural child poverty and hardship. He wasn't there just to sympathize, he was ready to act. Back at school, Leia quietly opened her notebook and wrote, "I think the world heard me today." Within days, the story spread across the nation. Headlines read, 8-year-old girl stuns president with one simple question. Social media lit up with hashtags like hashtag LAYA speaks and hashtag do you see us, Mr. President. But for Leia, the best part was seeing her classmates treat her differently with respect, curiosity, and kindness. Her voice had opened their eyes, too. 2 weeks later, government officials returned. They visited her home, her school, and spoke with teachers and children alike. Policy changes began, quietly but meaningfully. Spring arrived, and a local nonprofit reached out to Hank. "We want to help you farm again," they said. Volunteers showed up. Wheat was planted. The field began to bloom. Trump later sent a letter. "Let these golden fields be reminders of second chances and of brave daughters." Months later, during a school assembly, students took turns sharing their own truths. Leia stood, no microphone this time, and said, "When we believe our voices matter, we stop being invisible." Applause shook the room. Eventually, she was invited to the White House again. Trump unveiled a new initiative inspired by her, Leia's Light, a rural student spotlight program. "You didn't ask for help," he told her. "You asked to be seen, and that's powerful." Years passed. Leia became a writer, then a teacher. Every year on the anniversary of that day, she took out the gold coin and whispered the same question. "Do people like you even know we exist?" And every time, she answered it by listening, by teaching, and by speaking up when it mattered most. Today we learned that it doesn't take a microphone, a title, or even age to make an impact. Sometimes, it just takes a raised hand and the courage to speak your truth. Leia reminded us that being seen and heard is a right, not a privilege. What would you have done in her place? Let us know in the comments, because your voice matters, too.